because after the audition, he went up to Liverpool and he watched the Beatles play at the Cavern. And at the Cavern, he said, they were very raucous, the kids loved every minute of it. The rock and roll gyrations of Tommy Steele and Cliff Richard were clinical, anemic, even anaesthetic, compared with the total commitment of the Beatles. And as George Martin said in his autobiography, a group they were and a group they had to stay. So George Martin didn't have a problem with Pete Best in the Beatles, and he thought they were a great live act. And as we know, he wanted to almost make the first album a reflection of that great live act that he'd seen. But of course, when John, Paul and George walked into EMI Studios on the 4th of September 1962, nobody had thought to tell George Martin they'd changed the drummer. He was very surprised that Pete Best wasn't there. But sadly, this is the day that everything changed for Pete. That is what the evidence says. And the only reason that they decided they had to replace Pete was because George Martin, via Ron Richards, had decided Pete wasn't going to play on that first record. But they didn't make any changes until they got that contract through. And that contract didn't come through until about the third week of July. So they had to wait and wait and wait. Once that was through, then they proceeded to find other people to replace Pete. And of course, as we know, out of the 4 people who were asked, Ringo was the guy who said yes. And really, it couldn't have worked with anybody else. But this was the great day for the Beatles and the beginning of the end for Pete Best.